Lyra had always been a person who sought adventure. She lived in a small town surrounded by dense forests and mysterious hills. Every evening, gazing at the sunset, she dreamed of something more than the routine of her life. One day, while browsing old newspapers in the library, she stumbled upon an article about an psychiatric hospital on the Outskirts. The stories surrounding it were filled with enigmas and horrors which only fueled her interest. Lyra decided that she had to explore this hospital. She had all the necessary gear for an adventure: a flashlight, a camera, a notebook, and a bit of courage. She set out early in the morning when the fog still enveloped the ground and the sun's rays peeked through the clouds. The hospital stood on a hill, its massive stone walls covered in moss, and its windows shrouded in cobwebs. Lyra felt excitement building with each step she took. She entered through the massive doors, which creaked as if welcoming her. Inside, it was dark and empty. Lyra turned on her flashlight and began to explore the corridors, which seemed endless. Old photographs hung on the walls, depicting patients contorted in agony. Time and oblivion had left their marks, paint peeled off, and the floors creaked under her feet. As she walked, Lyra felt a presence watching her. Turning around, she saw nothing, but fear began to rise. Her instincts screamed for her to turn back, but curiosity prevailed. In one of the rooms, she found a diary belonging to a woman named Anna. The entries spoke of strange events in the hospital, secret experiments, and how patients began to disappear. Lyra's heart raced. She felt that the diary could tell her what had happened here. Reading the entries, Lyra realized that some of the patients who had undergone terrifying ordeals were not just people. They had become something more. They had turned into shadows. They had lost their souls, and now their essences wandered these corridors, unable to find peace. Suddenly, there was a crack in the corridor, and Lyra turned around. A shadow flickered at the edge of her vision. She began to move faster, but the feeling that someone was chasing her grew stronger. She ran toward the exit, but the doors were locked. Panic engulfed her. Lyra remembered that the diary mentioned ways in which patients tried to escape. One of them involved facing the shadows that hunted them. She had no choice. She had to find a way to confront them. Lyra returned to the room where she found the diary. She decided to perform the ritual described within. The preparations took her several hours. Gathering all the necessary items, she began to recite the incantation. Suddenly, the room filled with coldness, and shadowy figures began to appear around her. They whispered her name, reminding her of lost souls. Lyra felt a wave of terror wash over her, but she knew she could not give up. She started to speak to the shadows, asking what they wanted. The shadows responded that they were seeking liberation. They were bound to this hospital by their suffering and fears. Lyra understood that she could help them, but for that, she needed to confront her own fears. She began to share with the shadows her stories of loss, her fears, and her lifelong battle with loneliness. In the process, she felt their energy begin to change. The shadows started to take on human forms, and their faces became less distorted. Lyra realized that the key to freeing the shadows lay in forgiveness and understanding. She began to speak of love and hope, that even in the darkest times, one could find light. Gradually, the shadows began to vanish, and with each departure, Lyra felt lighter. When the last shadow left this place, the hospital was filled with light. Lyra was stunned by what had happened. She felt free like never before. Lyra exited the hospital, and a smile blossomed on her face. She knew that her experience had changed her forever. The sun shone outside, and she felt renewed. She returned to the town, full of stories about the shadows that had found peace. Lyra became a writer, and her book about the Shadows of Oblivion became a bestseller. She shared her stories with the world, and each page inspired people to find light even in the darkest times. She knew that everyone has their own shadows, but it was essential to learn how to cope with them to achieve freedom.